All right, here comes part 2 of our Unit 1 preview for the upcoming Unit 1 test in Algebra 2. We're going to jump in here on our second page, starting number 22, working with an absolute value equation. Now here's our key here, and this is something I've written on a lot of quizzes lately, so focus in here. You have to isolate the absolute value before you split it up. In other words, that minus 5 can't be here right now. I can't do the minus 5 and then plus 13 minus 13. I will get a wrong answer. So, if I go ahead and plus the 5 first, isolating my absolute value, now I can split them up and I'll get both of the solutions that I am desiring. Reminder, change the sign on your second solution. I'll minus my 2 over. And if you get a decimal or a fraction, don't think you've done anything wrong. If I divide by 3, I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. If you want to go to 5.33, you can, but not necessary. Minus the 2 and divide by 3. And again, I'm trying to give you the clue with both solutions to remember you do 2, but you've got to isolate that absolute value. That's a must. All right, below we're showing Shirley's work to solve the absolute value equation. Is she correct? Well, let's see. Did she do this right? This is isolated already. Okay, so there's the same. Negative 3, 3, and 3. Now, I look at this at first, and everything looks good. Minus that over, okay. I minus that over, okay. But let's take a little deeper look at something for a minute. If I were to actually plug this answer back in, let's see what happens. Negative 8 plus 5, negative 3. Okay, negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3. Oh, wait a minute. Absolute value makes it positive. 3 doesn't equal negative 3. So what's wrong here? Okay, here's what happened. An absolute value will never equal a negative number. And that's my way of proving it. Now, does that happen all the time? No. If this would have been a positive and she did this, would it have been right? Yes. So don't go into the test thinking, oh, he's going to put the negative, it's going to be wrong. No. Still do what you would normally do, like you did up here, okay? If it's positive, we just break it up. But if it starts as a negative, that's your key. If it starts as a negative, can't do it. It won't happen, it doesn't work right. So just one thing to keep track of there. Solve by showing work and straight the solution in interval notation. It's isolated, that's good. This is an and statement. Now, how do I know that? The arrow's pointing at the absolute value. My absolute value is less than. So when that happens, I like to write it this way and then draw another arrow going the same way, but switch the sign of the solution. And the reason is, ands usually come together with their graph. So if I minus my 7 to all 3 sides, now I'll say it again. I know it doesn't ask for a graph. I like graphing because it gives me an opportunity to see what this should look like for interval notation. So I look at this. Don't be an arrow follower. X is less than negative 3. Okay, less than is left. You're like, well, it's working for me so far. But here, again, devolicious X. It's all about X. X is greater than negative 11. Greater than goes to the right. So it all smashes in the middle. And interval notation is always left to right. So I start at negative 11 with my parenthesis and go until I get to negative 3 with my other parenthesis, and I'm good. Could I split this into 2 like we do with ORs most of the time? Sure. Sometimes, though, it just can get a little tricky on remembering what it should look like. So over here, my greater than is my OR. So normally with those, we just copy it the first time And the second time, I flip the arrow and change the sign. So I go through and I say, okay, so I'll minus my 2. And here, since I'm going to be doing interval notation, thinking about numbers, you know, if you want to do a decimal, that's fine. 8/3 is fine. I'm not picky. Minus my 2 here. Be careful. If I owe somebody $10 and I borrow 2 more, I now owe them 12. Divide by 3. That's what I'm looking at. Again, I'm going to draw a graph because, again, I like to see a picture of what I'm trying to make an interval notation of. X is greater than 2.67 or equal to. X is less than or equal to -4. And then my interval notation, again, left, which is way out here at -infinity, to right, -4. And then here, 2.67 off to infinity. Okay, so the ors get the bigger absolute value and also the bigger interval notation. All right, evaluate for the given function of x. Here, this will tell me which one I'm plugging into. You cannot do both. You have to pick one. And you pick the one that you're going to do based on this value, this x value. For instance, I look here. Is 5 less than 2? Well, no, that's ridiculous. Okay. Is 5 greater than 2? Yes. Plug in the 5 where the x is at. Get my value out. I'm done. And that's my test. F is -1/2. A negative is less than a positive. Okay. So it's this one. -1/2 minus 3 is -3.5, or -3.5. I'm even good with it. But you have to make sure you use these to plug it into the right one. So I have to know what less than is, what greater than is. 0 is less than 2. Yes. 0 minus 3 is -3. And I'm off and running. So again, nothing too terribly awful. We talked piecewise again with our piecewise revisited this week, so that's the way I'm going to tackle this one. Again, I'll even do a 50-50 like I did on the other one. So this first one, I'm going to use a table, because several of you, as I've walked around seeing you doing things, like to do the tables. So if you're going to go the table route, you always start at this value that's in the inequality, so at -1. My x values are less than that. So here's -1 on x. Less is left. So the next one will be -2 and then -3. So those are the values I'm going to use in my chart. This tells me which numbers to use. Then I plug them in. 2 times -1 is -2, plus 3 is 1. -2 times 2 is -4, plus 3 is -1. And 2 times -3 is -6, plus 3 is -3. And the only other question left is my opening dot open or closed? With the line underneath, that's going to be closed. So -1, 1, closed. -2, -1, -3, -3. Good there. If you like that, do it for the next one too, but you'd use -1 and 0, because greater than -1, we'd go to the next two to the right. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to plug that in here. So -1/3 times -1 plus 6. Well, negative times negative is a positive 1/3 plus 6, which is 6 1/3. So my x value I plugged in, and this 6 1/3 is my y, because that's what f of x is. So -1, 6 and a little more, with an open dot, and greater means to the right. So I'm going to do my slope. Down 1 and right 3, and I'm going to the right. This is good. Down 1 and right 3, and connect the dots. So that's how that's going to work out. So then, and again, half and half with graphing and a dot, table, pick the one that you like the best. All right, name the vertex and graph for each equation. Okay, vertex, reminder. Here's that form again. We keep having it show up in places. My vertex is HK. Now remember, this value is the opposite of H. So I want the opposite of -1. So my H value is 1. But my K value is whatever's outside. So 1, 2 would be my vertex. And then to graph it, I use my A, my slope, air quotes. Up 1 and over 3, up 1 and over 3. Because again, the A just tells me what direction it's opening. It's positive, so I knew it was opening up. If it would have been negative, it had opened down. And when we were doing these, we talked a lot about domain should be the easiest question ever on these, because they always go forever to the left and right, so it's negative infinity to infinity. Okay, so x values left to right. Arrows give us infinities. Range my y's from bottom to top. Here's the bottom, and again, look at the y value is at 2, but it goes up, 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 up forever and gets me to infinity. Okay? But again, I need to have a little bit of a general idea of my expression, and there's not a lot of these, so it's absolutely able to do. Write the equation. Okay, to do this, I need my vertex, and I need my slope. Okay, vertex is just where the points come together, so right here at 6, 2. Then my slope. Now again, here's one thing I know. It opens up, so my slope is going to be a positive number. So let's see here. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up 8, and right 1, 2. But I can reduce that, and if I can, I need to. So a positive 8 over 2 makes my A value 4. So now you have the expression right there. I just got to plug in. Okay, my A value is 4 because it's opening up. X minus, there's my H. So I just put the 6 in because it's the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. And this is my K, which is a plus 2. So we've got that set with our pieces and we're good to go. And then our last part is our newest thing, our circles. Identify the center and the length of the radius of the following circle. Okay, my center, here comes my HK again, because remember, these are set up similarly to what we see with our absolute value, except we don't have the absolute value bars. So to get my center, I'm taking opposites. The opposite of this value, the opposite of 3 is negative 3. The opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. And then my radius is just taking whatever this value is and taking its square root. And I'm set. And when I go to do that for 33 as well, now it's just the opposite. I get the picture. I'm supposed to come up with the other part. So I need to find my center. So I'm like, okay, Starting at the edges here. We're coming in. Okay. Looks like my center is about right there. So my center is at -2, 0. So I need that part. And I need my radius, which is from the center out to an edge. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm ready to plug in. So I look and I go, okay, so x, the opposite of h, the opposite of -2 is +2. Plus y minus k, okay, 0 doesn't really have a plus or a minus, so either way, equals my radius squared. So 3 squared, which again is not 6, it's 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, again, here's the whole thing. And if you have your stuff together, you can paste this off pretty well and do it. If there's parts you still don't get, that's what we need to chat about, because we've only been going for a little over 15 minutes here. There's plenty of time to go back over things, ask questions, okay? I'm sort of going down this road here. What topics do we need to be talking about more? Because I've got things we can do together. Every section on here, I have more questions of everything, and I'm happy to do them with you. So hopefully at this point, I'm seeing a few hands or something like that, and we can start doing some of these to make good use of our time, because we've done the review, and that's due tomorrow. There's no other homework, unless you still need to make up some from before, so I want to make sure this works well for you. So hopefully we get a good another half an hour in here, and we'll be ready and ready to go tomorrow.